Okay, good.
Yeah, so it's not, it's only difficult to the extent that the 50-year-old is untrained or deconditioned. So once you gather back that training status, which depending on just how advanced training status we're talking, for most people to get back to a recreational or intermediate training status can, I mean, it can take within a year of consistent training and lifestyle training and diet to get there. But the point is, it doesn't. I mean, the person could be 65 and run against the 35-year-olds as long as the training happens and it's progressive and injury is avoided. Um, there are obvious maybe ceiling limits to ultimate performance at the competitive level between 35-year-olds and 50-year-olds. And this is evidenced by seeing really what age certain sportsmen peak out at their competitive capacity. And it does vary with the sport. Well, we can take mixed martial arts, for example. It's pretty rare for guys much past 40 to still be doing it at the professional level. And some of that is a function of injuries. A lot of it is a function of injuries and injury risk and the accumulation of trauma over a long MMA career that may have started 5-10 years prior to them hitting their 40s. But there are certain examples in the sport, like Glover Teixeira, for example, who was the champ in his 40s, headed towards his mid 40s. He was just as strong, just as vigorous and sharp and lucid and skilled as the guys essentially 10, 15, close to 20 years younger than him.
Wow.
So there are certain things, but I guess if you were to look at it on maybe a statistical level or kind of a population level, there may be some limits to ultimate competitive capacity as people cross into their mid 40s versus their, let's say, mid 20s. But at the recreational level, what we can observe, at least, well, I'll take a personal example. So I turned 50 in January. I'm actually stronger than I was when I was 25, and I'm in better shape than I was when I was 30, 35. And it is a function of lifestyle. And it is also a function of just having the knowledge to properly train progressively and sort of the discipline now that I didn't have back in my 30s. I didn't have the same discipline and focus. So maybe a shorter and less convoluted answer to that is looking at 35 versus 50. Chronological age, if we're not talking about ultimate competitive capacity, sort of a non-issue. At some point, it does become an issue. Like, you can't just take somebody who's, let's say, 85 years old and try to get them on a level playing field with a 30-year-old in certain competitive venues. But if we're talking about recreational fitness, chronological age is as a barrier would only be a thing if injuries were in play, injury and disease. But without injury and disease, shoot, man, you can take a 70-year-old, untrained 70-year-old, untrained 80-year-old, and progress them to a point of impressive fitness capabilities at the recreational level, and really kind of level the playing field with other regular folks who are not professional athletes.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I'm sure you see this at your gym too, but there's a 70-year-old named Richard at my gym, and he can do 100-pound dumbbells, flat bench, chest press, 70-year-old. And I saw my friend Eleanor at the gym a couple of days ago. She's 90, and she was doing skull crushers and bicep curls and Bosu ball work at age 90.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Brett. I saw this clip of Tony Robbins talking about a book that he wrote recently or not so recently, where he interviewed people who are in their like 80s and 90s and beyond, who are competing with people half and a third of their age. And by competing, I mean giving them a run for their money and beating
Wow.
them.
Wow.
And a common thread amongst these folks is that at some point they just made the decision to shift their mindset about chronological age. Because the difference between chronological age and biological age can be this truly profound divide, truly profound divide. And a lot of times it just begins with the mindset.
So true.
And there is a growing population of older adults who are really breaking the mold and really just redefining redefining the impact of chronological age and how minimal the passage of time is in terms of effects on health and fitness. There are many, many examples of such folks, to almost to the point where you can only call people outliers if they're just very scarce. And
Right.
so we see just a growing number of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s performing and outperforming people half that age.
That's awesome.
It's just a growing population, and it's worth looking into. And on this particular note, I have a paper that actually has been accepted for publication in a journal called Nutrition Reviews. And this is one of the biggest nutrition journals. It has a higher impact factor than the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. So I'm really excited about this paper, and we're just patiently waiting for them to format it into hopefully the upcoming issue of Nutrition Reviews. Unfortunately, it's not an open access paper, but as soon as I get my hands on it, man, I'll send you to it.
Yeah.
I'll send you a copy of it.
I'd love that.
And yeah, and the paper is about age-related muscle anabolic resistance, and is it inevitable or is it preventable? And we just discuss the strategies of ultimately just delaying age-related anabolic resistance as much as possible. And the data in that area are really, really interesting with respect to the age that you can start reversing the process of sarcopenia and the process of dynapenia. And it really, chronology is almost irrelevant. You can take very old muscle and rejuvenate it simply by training and nutrition and a little bit of time,
Wow.
a little bit of progression. You can take 85-year-old muscle and make it look like 40-year-old muscle. It's truly a fascinating area, and we're almost closing in on immortality. I wouldn't say immortality, but we actually did find at least the fountain of youth, or at least a stream that leads to the fountain of youth.
And it's very true, isn't it? I say this to friends in weightlifting perspective, but I really think it applies to life. And I don't want to be too corny, but if you think you can do something, you're probably right. And if you think you can't do something, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Point being, it's so mental. We limit ourselves in our own, opportunities, And so, I mean, my arteries are only 24, so there you go, right?
Yeah. I would not surprise me at all, Brett, if you're one of these folks who is just sailing past 80, 90, just truly vigorous individual, independently, uh, independently mobile and fit, and just kind of blowing people away when you tell them, hey, well, I'm 90. I'm 90. Move out of my way for a second. I'm going to grab these. Let me grab these 70-pound dumbbells and start shrugging them or pushing and pulling them. And it really is a beautiful thing and a beautiful challenge to to minimize the effects of father time as we head towards our 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
That's amazing. Hey, if we have time for one more bonus question, since we added a new Zoom call, I got one more.
Sure, go for it.
So looking for some practical advice here for my guys. So when you're on vacation or you're traveling for work, which I assume you do quite a bit of,
Yeah.
there's an increased opportunity to mess up on your food or your exercise because you're removed from your routine.
Yeah.
My coach once told us in situations where, your schedule keeps you from hitting your fitness or your food goals, you should either do one or the other thing. He said you should either eat well or lift well, but don't skip both. So point being, if you're able to lift that day, then it's okay to have some yummy vacation food. Or if you're stuck in a sedentary day, then try and eat more clean that day. And I just wondered if kind
That's
of
great.
if you could share some of your strategies on how you
Mhm.
stay on track during your travels.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And that's really good advice from Mr. Vargas. Um, Me personally, I'm number one, I'm glad that I'm not traveling as much as I used to. It hit a point where I just said yes to every seminar invitation, and I ended up getting on a plane like once or twice a month, like, without fail. And for a single guy in his
That's
in his
different.
20s or 30s, that'd be fine, right?
You got
But
that beautiful wife and kids.
I got my family who I was just leaving at home while I screwed around with a bunch of fitness folks who they're great, but I would actually rather be with my wife and babies when I really needed to be. So yeah, number one, thankfully that part of my life is in the past. I've learned how to say no to invitations. But when they do happen, I have the eating that I do, I really try to reduce the frequency of meals in the day, because with my personal situation, it's more a matter of controlling overeating than it is trying to eat enough to get to get bigger, or to
Yeah.
get more like the Hulk, or more like Mike O'Hearn. So in my particular case, I try to keep the main meals down to one or two for the day. Um, and I'm usually not gone long enough for it to be a major impact if I did it, every day or so. Usually with
Right.
these types of trips, it's limited to a few days at
Yeah.
most. It rarely hits, close to a week. But the training part is something I do try to maintain, since I know that there's very little options and minimal control over the types of foods that are put in front of me. And sometimes I do bring protein powder to my travels. I just bring a sack of protein powder, just so when I know the chips are down, and I can just get a bottle of water and take care of that aspect of things. But the training part is taken care of pretty easily. I don't personally like to seek out where the best gyms are in the area and then go through the rigmarole of getting an Uber to the gym, um or dealing with the hotel gym and having to deal with all those details. So what I do is I just do a hotel room based workout, which
Yes.
is which is very comprehensive and very actually quite challenging. And it's a circuit of push-ups to failure, sets of push-ups to failure, that's just successively done with sets of pull-ups to failure and sets of Bulgarian split squats, foot elevated on the, either on the bed or the
Okay.
couch or the chair,
Yep.
Bulgarian split squats to failure. And the pull-ups are the only logistical challenge at some points, because it's hard to find a place to do pull-ups in a hotel room aside from the bathroom door.
Yeah.
So the top of the bathroom door, a little trade secret here is you take a towel and you fold it once and you sling it over the top of the door, so that you don't hurt your hands when you're doing pull-ups. And the pull-ups are extra resistance because your body is dragging against the door. So make sure that you can't do them shirtless. Otherwise you're just
Get scraped up.
So make sure that you have a shirt that you don't mind rubbing against the door. And then you can get, I mean, if you're pretty strong, heck, you can get 7 to 10, sometimes more pull-ups on the door. And then you can just literally go in succession with the push-ups to failure, the pull-ups to failure, the Bulgarian split squats to failure. And if you do 3 rounds of that, you're absolutely toast.
Yeah.
You're just freaking roasted and toasted, and within, well, in far less than an hour, depending on how long you rest in between sets with that circuit. So that's my hotel room workout. And by the way, off the record, I actually did break a door once. I really should have. I should have tested the strength of the door. It was in an old hotel in San Diego. It's pretty funny. I really should have, like, when you swing the door open and you shake it, you really have to make sure it's pretty solid to withstand your weight and stuff. But yeah, I did actually break a door by accident. And so I've been much more careful with just the cadence and the speed and the ballisticness of which you do these I call them prison pull-ups.
Yeah.
in your hotel room. So yeah,
right.
That's what I do. That's
amazing. That's an extra trade secret. We appreciate that, because I'm going to do that next time. I promise you.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Well, thank you, Mr. Aragon. I appreciate all the time you gave us. It's really valuable insights, and you gave us a lot more than I asked for. And so thanks for letting us get into your brain there a little bit.
Well, I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know you were going to ask such my favorite topics and stuff. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing for your community. And for those of you who tuned in, thank you for doing the best that you can to live the best life that you can. I think it's such a noble endeavor. And, the world would be a better place if more people embarked on this type of journey.
100%. And I'm going to hold you to that article when it comes out. I'm really excited to read it. So.
Oh, I'm excited for it to get published, man. So yeah, as soon as I get it, I'm going to send it to my friends, and you'll be one of them. So.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you once again. Appreciate you.
You got it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you,
Mr.
too.
Brett. Brett Scranton, right? Scranton.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.